recording here. And let me share here on Moodle. Hold a second. Because I wanted to go over the weekly plan. So here it is. And basically what I wanted to go through is where we are and where we're going, because I want to make sure we are all clear on where we are. So we are going to be finishing today this section on institutions and markets. And in particular, I want to have a discussion on the issue of the limits of the moral limits to markets, after we wrap up what we were doing last time regarding the analysis of externalities with this simple model of the private marginal cost and social costs. And then next week, we are going to start this new section in which we are going to be now going in more depth into the issue of valuing costs and benefits. We will be reading chapter 20 in the textbook, and we will be talking also about some issues of inequities and environmental justice. And there is in fact a short text by Amartya Sen that I want you to read. I will be uploading that soon for you to read. So as I said last time, next week, I'm not sure if Tuesday or Thursday, I will be doing one more quiz that is going to have a grade to make sure that we have everything in our minds in what we have been doing in this particular analysis of markets and external costs from chapter 12 and what we did in the last 2 weeks, including today. So we will be doing that quiz, but I'm not sure if we will do it Tuesday or Thursday. This time I'm going to try to make sure if I can upload it in Moodle. I'll see if I can do that. Otherwise, I'll do it the same way we did last time with a Zoom poll. I will be showing you the questions and you will be answered them on the spot. And I am preparing one more experiment that has to do with markets, but also with taxes, with the idea of introducing environmental taxes so that we get an idea of how they work and how they solve a lot of these issues that we have been addressing in the last weeks. And then later, we will be deepening into more of policies, public policies that we use to solve these environmental issues. We will be mentioning some of them briefly today. And finally, in this week 11, I want to give you a hint of what we know regarding behavioral economics and issues of the environment. How can we harness some of the findings that behavioral economics has been able to do to address some of the challenges that we have regarding environmental problems? Okay, so that's where we're headed, and which would be these 3 next weeks. So hopefully we'll be able to cover that through the chapter 20 in the textbook, and couple readings that are quite short, which is this text by Amartya Sen and this article published recently on what kind of behavioral tools we can use and what kind of human rational model we can use for the Anthropocene, for this challenge, for this coming century that we are living. Okay, so that's regarding the plan for where we are and where we're headed to. And let me now get to my notes here and get back to the problem of externalities that are imposed from one agent to other agents and when we have the problem of external costs. Since last time we were doing most of this model and the concepts that we introduced in the class and in the textbook, I wanted to run a quick poll on just to make sure that you are understanding these concepts that we are using in externalities. So let me give you here 3 questions that I want you to answer, just to make sure that you're clear with the definitions regarding this type of analysis, these costs, the curves, and the economic analysis that we have of them. So let me throw them right now and take probably 2 minutes to answer these 3 questions quickly. Here. So as I have said before, in Moodle, I have been uploading, and I just updated the file this morning. Here, in this first part of the page that you see, here I have this link here says Zoom polls questions and answers. So if you click that there and you open that file, let me show you the file where it is. You should be able to see this Word file with all the questions that we have been doing in the Zoom polls and the answers. I will add these last 3 questions to that so that they help you with the study and preparation for the quiz. Okay. So I will use these questions and answers also to be added there. So that's the main issues that I had here with respect to quizzes. And now let me open my slides here and get to the point from last time that I was trying to make on this guy that you see in the right, which is Ronald Coase. And Ronald Coase was a very interesting and prolific guy, very important to the economics profession, in bringing in some of the legal issues, and one of the fathers of what you could call the law and economics approach. And the reason for that, to show you the reason for me to show you the picture is because this is also a legal issue that we were doing last time and showing here again using this model. If you remember, the point that I was trying to make is that if you are here in point A, we know that's an inefficient outcome for society. That we know, and you can prove why. Okay, so think of the quiz. You can prove to me why point A at 80,000 tons is inefficient. But also, you can find the reasoning that Ronald Coase made, that these guys, when I say these guys, is all these fishers and all these banana growers could find a way to move away from A towards this point here, which is the socially efficient outcome. And again, you can prove to me that that point where the laser pointer is socially efficient. We did that last time. We proved that. You can go over the recording and the notes and the like. But the point is, there are ways of mutually beneficial, net positive benefits for both parties. And it would be mutually beneficial that they move from here to here by bargaining over the damages that are being suffered by one or the other. Of course, moving from here to here, the fishers win, the farmers, the banana farmers lose. That we know. In the same way that moving from here to here, from no production to 38,000 tons, the banana growers lose I'm sorry, the banana growers win and the fishers lose because they suffered externalities. So what I'm trying to say here is, and here's the point from Ronald Coase that it's so fascinating about that argument, that it doesn't matter whether you start here at no banana production or whether you start at the full private efficiency production of 80,000 tons, which is what the banana growers would like to produce. And the argument by Coase is, it doesn't matter if you start here or here, by bargaining with each other, they should reach this point. Again, you need to assume certain things that are not necessarily always easy to solve in terms of how easy it is to do the transactions, how much available information you have regarding the losses and the benefits and costs for both parties and so on. But the point is that if you make those assumptions, you can find ways of mutually beneficial bribes, because ultimately this is a bribing problem. At A, the farmers would be interested in bribing the farmers to reduce banana production. At this point at zero production, the banana growers would be interested in bribing the farmers to put up with the damages from the pesticide. And this point would be socially efficient. And that's the point that Coase was trying to make. If you have the right conditions, you could get them to bargain with each other and they will find a way towards social efficiency. Notice the implication, and this is very important. You don't need a third party to intervene. That's part of the implications of this solution, the Coase solution. You don't need the government to charge a tax. You don't need the government to impose a subsidy or to make a transfer. These transfers would happen between the two parties. Think of it the following way. Imagine that you are sharing your dorm room. So you are in a dorm with 2 beds and you have to share it with another student. And imagine for a second that smoking indoors is permitted in the dorms, which probably was not many years ago, right? And one of the students is a non-smoker and the other one is a smoker. Okay, so the non-smoker would hate that his roommate smokes and the smoker would hate that he doesn't smoke, because both get utility from the opposite. Okay, imagine in the Coase bargaining world that each of them would bribe the other one to move away from the extreme that they would love, because they are entitled to a part. I'm not saying to everything, but they are entitled to a part that has to do with sharing the same room. So imagine that the smoker is so addicted that the smoker would be willing to pay a certain amount of money per cigarette or per day or per week or per year to the non-smoker. And then the non-smoker at some point would say, no, I don't want money. I just don't want you to smoke. And the other one, and the smoker would say, yeah, but I am truly addicted to nicotine and I need to smoke. You need to accept a certain amount of money. At this point, what is going to be critical is how much each of them is going to value the state or the level of smoking that they face. If the non-smoker, imagine, has asthma or a lung problem or a health issue, the willingness to pay of the non-smoker to the smoker not to smoke, it's probably going to be high, because this person needs to compare between those two scenarios: giving up money for reducing the smoking or giving up health to put up with the smoking and accept an amount of money. Okay, And this that I'm saying is critical here because this is going to be part of the end of the class today, which is the moral limits to markets. But imagine these two players trying to find that optimal level of smoking in that room, depending on how addicted is the smoker and how concerned is the non-smoker for his or her health, okay? And this that I'm telling you is not that far away from, for example, my case. I have one brother, it's only him and he's a very heavy smoker. So when he comes home, he politely asks, is it okay if I smoke? And depending on ventilation and the windows you can open and whether you have babies around and the like, you put up to a certain amount of smoking, right? And we find a mutually beneficial agreement because I know my brother and I know how much he loves and he needs to smoke. And at the same time, when I go to his house, I know that I have to put up with more smoking and everything in that house smells like cigarette. Okay? His clothing, his furniture, everything in his house. And I know I put up with that. But notice, I am talking about this between two consenting parties that share something more that is this mutual link called brotherhood. But that's one thing, and the other one is a market transaction. And I would never dare to offer my brother money to stop smoking. It would be uncomfortable for both. And he would probably never offer me money to let him smoke in my house. We find this in a conversation, in a deliberation, because we have this binding relationship that is called brotherhood, family. But imagine between two parties that are just anonymous parties, two adjacent firms. Imagine that one firm produces something that pollutes, and imagine the adjacent firm that requires clean air to be able to produce something for the market. And these two companies need to produce something for the market. Now, if the company, the adjacent company that needs really clean air because it's producing highly sensitive medical components that need to be really clean and needs really clean air to be able to produce within that plant. Otherwise, it wouldn't pass the quality control, and then the market would hit this company by not buying those products because they are not clean enough and they need to be sterile. Then either this company pays lots of money to purify its air within the company, or this company could go to the polluting company that is next door and say, hey, I need clean air. I need to pay you money so that you reduce your pollution, right? And again, in these transactions, you don't need the government to intervene as long as the two parties have the right information and they can come up with this agreement to get to the point, to the pointer, laser pointer that you see there, that location in which you aggregate the benefits and aggregate the costs, including the external costs, to both parties and find the optimal level of pollution. Okay, so I have gone from this case, which is the banana case. Imagine the same thing for these two industries that are adjacent, and one of them truly really needs clean air and the other one is polluting the air, and they are going to bargain with each other until they find an optimal level of pollution, right? And they are going to value internally how much is too much of either accepting the damage or accepting the bribe. And that's the framework that Coase offered to present a solution that doesn't require the government to solve environmental problems. And this that I just said is quite controversial, provocative, and also when you talk about implementation in reality, it becomes tricky. So if you come to court to contest the damages that one person is doing to another person, because the legal framework gives entitlements to one of the parties, it could be the case that they could find a conciliatory space in which even the judge says, deal with each other, find a way between you two to solve this problem. And Coase argues it doesn't matter if the entitlement, the legal rights go all the way to the left to zero production, or all the way to the right to the point A. You should be able to bargain with each other until you find a net transfer from one party to the other one and reach this point. So imagine that the fishers in our example here have a legal right to a clean environment in the lake, okay? So the law says that these fishers have a legal right for the water to be unpolluted. Even in that case, according to Coase, even in that case, the fishers would be better off accepting a compensation from the banana growers and move from A to that 38,000 tons of bananas, and they would be better off. Because again, as I explained last time, they will be avoiding the costs that are represented in the green triangle called net social gain. Now imagine in the other opposite in the opposite case, that it is the banana growers who have a legal right, an entitlement to produce bananas, because they own the land and the legal framework says that they have the right to set up a business, and in that business produce bananas, generate profits. They will pay their taxes, they will hire labor, and they will pay labor within the legal limits and so on. And in that case, again, they should be able to move towards a certain level of production in which they, again, bribe each other until they find this socially optimum level of production and the minimum pollution costs. Again, the pollution costs are not reduced to zero because there is pollution at 38,000 units. But the net benefits to society, so total benefits minus total costs at the societal level, are going to be maximized, because again, we are avoiding that green triangle, even if we lose the purple triangle of the loss of profits for the firm. Now, having said all that, it comes to the question that I was mentioning last time, which is, when you come to reality and you get out of this abstraction in an ideal world in which everybody can bribe each other until they find that solution, power is going to matter a lot in finding the co-solution adequate. And when I say power, is whether the fishers have more power to impose the banana growers, to impose, for example, a reduction in production, or whether the banana growers will impose a larger amount of production into the fishers. And this power can come from many sources. Imagine that the council members in the municipality that regulates this has a large representation of the farmers and a smaller representation of the fishers. That is very common in areas where agriculture is highly determined or affecting the political power that landowners have. So if land is determining the power in this municipality, it is more likely that the banana growers have more power in the council than the fishers. Okay, because they own the land, the banana growers. But it could be that these are a bunch of small banana growers, small farmers with minimum pieces of land. And then in the lake, we're talking about a huge fishing corporation that has a lot of lobby and political power in the municipality, either because they sponsor the political campaign of council members, or they sponsor the campaign of the mayor who ran for office, or they even imposed the conditions under which the council passes certain environmental regulations at the municipality level. And depending on all this political framework, the landscape of the distribution of political power between the farmers and the fishers, it is going to be more likely that these people move from this point to maybe point A, or towards a level of, or moving to even lower levels of banana production. And that again is going to depend on the distribution of power at that particular level. So
I have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Thomas.
So in terms of like translating this to reality,
yeah,
what happens if growing bananas is so much more profitable than fishing,
yeah,
that it never makes it worth it for the banana growers to take that deal?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you, within this framework, how would you do that? So there are ways to make the banana growing more profitable. So I'm going to send the question back to you, Thomas, or anyone else, but give me an example within that model in which we are going to make the banana growers make much more money than they are actually making right now. How would you, and let's start with you, Thomas, how would you see that happening with the graph? Give me an example of the banana growers making more money.
Yeah, anywhere to the right of the first critical point would be the banana growers making more money. So
you mean moving away from A to the right?
I mean, moving from the loss of profit point to the right. Anywhere going right, they're making more profit.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah.
And what the framework is saying is that even if you move within this point and this point, and again, we have been calling this point B, let's do this point B again. Between B and A, notice, remember this, the losses for the fishers are so large, the green triangle, that they are interested in offering money to the banana growers to move towards B, okay? And I think that is pretty clear there, because this triangle here is so large, okay? Compared to this triangle here, which is small.
No, that makes sense.
Okay, now, but your question,
no matter how small they are, there's always going to be. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, Thomas, because your question is very
so I was
important.
just going to say, no matter how small the banana. Yeah, I was just going to say, so no matter how small the fisherman group is, and no matter how little profit they make. Sorry, I'm seeing my internet connection is bad right now, so apologies if you can't hear.
We're hearing you.
But
Yeah.
no matter how small they are, they're still going to be a socially optimum point. Like they're still going to move to the left, like no matter what, it's still going to work for a little bit. It might not be like a far distance,
Yes.
but it'll be a little bit.
Okay, so I think you saw the point, but still your question is important in the following way. And I'm going to throw the question back to anyone else here. Give me a way of making the banana farming business much more profitable within this model. How would you make the banana growers make more money? Crystal, were you raising your hand or?
Yeah, but my example would also increase the private cost, but I was thinking like shipping them somewhere where the price of bananas is a lot higher.
Yes.
Like maybe internationally.
Exactly. Imagine that this company finds a way to export these bananas to a place where they are paying not $400, but $600. Did you see what happened there? Think about in the model what happened with what Crystal said. For some reason, these guys were able to now sell bananas not at 600, but not at 400, but $600. And now, let me see if I can draw this easy here because it's. So imagine now that at $600, we are here. See what just happened? So now that's the new price, right? And I'm going to continue going there because now this point here, this is the marginal private cost. See what happened here? So if now they are able, because of what Crystal mentioned, that these guys found a way to sell these bananas at $600 with the same marginal cost that they are having, the purple line, the same marginal private cost. That means that they would be interested in going all the way towards here in terms of production. But we know that's not socially efficient because we know that the social efficiency comes when these guys make equal the marginal social cost with the price, right? So that says that here at 70,000 tons, it would be ideal for these guys, right? For the whole society. But with these prices, now the banana growers have more bargaining power because they are more profitable now. And this is why Thomas' question was so interesting, because now the business is so good because of what Crystal said. We have so much more money in our pockets as banana growers that now we can make much more production. Pollution is going to increase for these fishers. And then this thing is moving towards 70,000 because now that is socially efficient. So now, and notice how ethically complicated this is, because this is an external factor. The fact that these prices are up for these farmers makes the fishers worse off, and yet this point here becomes the socially efficient, and now 70,000 tons of bananas is the optimal level of production that optimizes the or gives us the optimal level of pollution. But notice, moving towards that point, just because they found a way to export these bananas and get paid $600 instead of $400, makes this socially efficient solution. And therefore, the banana growers are making much more money, and the fishers are suffering even more damages from the pollution. Right? So that's complicated. I mean, that's a political economy issue we need to deal with. And there would be Notice I'm using the Pareto criterion. And we went through that before. Pareto would say, moving towards this new point is good for society because we made at least one player better off without harming the other one. And you would say, no, wait, but the fishers are worse off because they are suffering more pollution, right? But still, the gains from the increase in banana production are so large, which is part of Thomas' question. They are so large that they compensate for these losses to the fishermen. And therefore, to move towards this new level, the banana growers would be capable of offering, again, we call it a bribe, to the fishers to put up with this extra pollution. And they would both be better off in terms of efficiency. That's the paradox and how complicated this Pareto criterion is. And sadly, in a way, this is one of the most important criterions used in public policy to justify transactions. This was the point in the infamous World Bank memo. Let's make these guys better off even if we export their industries there because their losses are not that large. Okay? Now, let me erase that and let me give you one more example for you to think about, and you can do this on your own then later, but it's the following. Imagine now I am going to use the purple curve again, which is the marginal private cost. Now imagine the following. Don't think now in the case that Crystal gave us, which is they found a way to sell these bananas at better price. I'm going to give you one more. These banana growers developed an amazing new technology for new seeds and fertilizer that they are capable of producing the same amount of bananas with much less land, less fertilizer, less seeds, less labor, right? They just developed this genetically modified banana seed, a new species that they can produce the same amount of bananas with much less. That would be represented here more or less in the following way, right? And with that in mind, and with the same price, which is the same price that is here, now these guys would be maximizing profits here because they reduce the cost. So now they are making more money. Again, based on the question that Thomas gave us, now all these are extra new profits beyond what they were making before. Right? These are extra profits for the banana growers. And therefore, they are moving towards more production, more efficient, more profits. And they will have money in their pockets to bribe the fishers to put up with some pollution from the banana production. So it could go in many ways. Now, let me give you more examples. Imagine that we discovered that this particular curve of the marginal social cost that was based on scientific knowledge regarding the damages that this pesticide, this Weevil produces on the fishers. And they discovered that not only it was killing the fish, but it was creating cancer and serious damages to the brains of these kids in this village. Okay? And now we need to recalculate the marginal social cost curve. So the damages from that Weevil kill are way larger than we originally thought. Well, that means that maybe the curve is like this, right? And this would be the marginal social cost too. And in that case, notice, and probably I was exaggerating. Let me redraw it in the following way so that we can get to the point. Imagine that it is like this. So this is the marginal social cost in the second scenario. In that case, the new socially optimum level of pollution would be this one, 20,000 tons of bananas. But notice, once you discover that, imagine it is you and your families who are living around that town, that village, that lake, and you discover this is the true marginal social cost of banana production, because this pesticide not only harms the fish, but it's harming the neurological system of you and your kids and your descendants, and the costs are way higher. Now you value way more the reduction of pollution, the reduction of the use of this pesticide. And again, notice, compared to what we were, these are all new costs that were not being accounted for before. All that green shaded area that I just marked are new incentives for the fishers to bribe even further the banana growers to reduce production, because they are valuing this much more. So there are all kinds of determinants that can move this to the left or the right, depending the power or the exact calculation of the benefits and costs of each of these cases, okay? So in general, what we want as society is to internalize these costs, right? To see how we can get to this point, if that's the socially optimum. And it's going to depend on all these different reasons that we are mentioning before. Knowing that all this green area that you see there is the difference between the costs for the entire society and the costs for the creators of the damage, namely the producers. And this means that if we wanted to get to that point that I am, this point B that I have been mentioning, if we want to get to that point, we could go in various directions that we have already discussed. One of them is that they agree with each other until they find a bribing mechanism with each other to get to that point. And we have demonstrated that it could be the case if the right conditions are met. It could be reached also if, for example, the banana company buys the entire fishery and creates one single company, the banana and fish company. That's another way of internalizing the costs. And notice, if you buy, if the banana growers and the fishers become one single company, because the banana growers buy the fishing company, that new company rationally and in order to maximize its profits is going to choose point B without any intervention by anyone. It is the rational thing to do, because now they have internalized the external costs. If you are the banana growing company, this green line doesn't become any more, doesn't become any more the marginal social cost. Now it is the marginal private cost. Because in that green line, the banana company internalized the costs that before it was imposing into the fishers, but now the fishers are part of the company. The same way, if the fishers were to buy the banana company and they create the fishing and banana company, those fishers now will decide also to produce at point B, in which they maximize profits from their entire company. The same could be said if they form a cooperative. So imagine the owners of the fisheries and the owners of the banana, they form a cooperative and they create a board and they appoint a CEO and they say, okay, we're not going to work as one single big company. And then the board in that company is going to drive the solution to the optimal level of production to point B for the same reasons that we have said, okay? So either of these cases would lead to a decentralized solution. Notice, in any of these cases, one bribing the other one buying the other one, or both creating a co-op, you don't need the government to intervene. You don't need a tax or a subsidy or any other arrangement. You basically need them to sit down and figure this out. You see? And can you give me 2 seconds? My cat needs to get out of a door that is meowing. I'll be right back. Got it. She needed to go to the bathroom and she was asking for the door to be open. Okay, so is this notion of internalizing costs clear? Do you think, Crystal, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm wondering how, besides like a hypothetical situation like this, I'm wondering how you could possibly quantify the total social costs of pollution. Like, how do you quantify children, not to, put too much like emotion into it, but how do you quantify children getting cancer, or like the possibility of a species going extinct due to it, or like complete anoxic zones? Like, how do you quantify that impact and not just the monetary loss given to the fishermen?
That's absolutely critical. And that's where we're headed, because that's the next section. And in chapter 20, we'll be reading a lot about that. And I'm going to give you a preview in the following way. It is very hard. It is challenging. And there are tools out there to quantify those values, those economic values. And yet you will be still a bit frustrated to see how it is done. And at some points, ones get even disgusted at how it is done. So judges have to do this all the time. When you have a lawsuit that is involved, that it's related to an environmental problem, and a party sues another party for an environmental damage, and you probably saw the movie Erin Brockovich. Have you seen that movie? Okay, so imagine that kind of setting, okay? And this is why I'm saying you're going to be frustrated and disappointed and even disgusted at some cases. So one of the tools that judges and courts have to use is the idea of the statistical value of a life. Can you imagine that? That sounds uncomfortable. What do you mean a statistical value of a life? Because how can you value life, right? And not only biological, non-human biological life, the value of a species, but also human biological life. I mean, we're talking about serious things here, deep philosophical issues here, but you need to get practical at some point. And then courts and judges are going to need a way of defining how much is too much, so that you assign punitive damages from one party to the other one, so that you get one party to pay the other one. So let me put it this way. Imagine two human beings, you and I, at the same age. Imagine you and I are the same age, but I make $2 million a year and you make $200,000 a year, right? And we get a health damage to our bodies because of the pollution from a company, and we sue that company. and the judge is going to estimate how much life is going to be, how much longer you and I are going to live. And let's assume that we have the same health. Let's assume that we live in the same conditions. But the only difference is that we have different wages. And you and I are going to live certain number of more years, and we are going to see reduced our life expectancy in the same number of years, you and I. That means that those lost years are going to represent lost income for us and our families. And when they value that lost income, that company is going to end up paying much more money to me than to you. Because one criterion that they use is the opportunity cost of the damage, meaning the income that it's lost because of those years lost. Right? Now, let's not even go that dramatic, that we're going to die. But let's say that the damage created the loss of productivity in both of us, you and I. So we got sick and we couldn't work as much, we couldn't be as productive, or we were hospitalized for a number of days. And we both paid the same bills in the same hospital for the same reasons, for the same number of days. Yes, they're going to have to pay to us the medical bills. That's fine. But they are going to account that, they're going to add to the accounting of that the fact that you and I couldn't work during those days. And how much do you value that? At the wage. And therefore, again, they're going to give me much more money to me than to you. Is that fair? Probably not. Because you and I are both human beings with the same rights upon the law, and yet the judge and the court is going to assign the damages in different ways. And one of the ways that are being used is the wages that people earn. Now, somebody could claim the following: hey, but Juan Camilo works harder and he's smarter than Crystal, he deserves more money, right? That could be an argument. If Crystal is getting less wages, it's because she hasn't worked that hard in her life. Well, I could also say, yeah, but Juan Camilo has more money because he inherited much more money and he landed a job because of the connections of his family and not because he put more effort into his career. And if you look at their careers, it happens that both Crystal and Juan Camilo have the same degrees from the same type of universities with the same GPA, and they did the same effort. But it just happened that when Juan Camilo graduated, he already had his father's company to run. Whereas Crystal didn't have that company from her father, and she had to work hard to move up in the income ladder. And that again is one more reason of why we need to look this through the lens of the political economy of the problem. Now, that's one of the few answers that we are going to be seeing starting next week, because the other one is, how do you estimate that green curve that is in the screen? I have just told you one of the pieces, but the other one is, how do we deal with unknown environmental damages? How we deal with unknowns in the sense that if this pesticide is harming a particular ecosystem and we haven't even declared and typified and classified all the species that are involved in that ecosystem. What if in that lake there are certain bacteria that we didn't know of and that we're killing, and those bacteria could have the solution to cancer, and we even discovered that before it was gone? How do we value that? And that again moves us into a very interesting and difficult terrain in which, as I have said, we have made progress, but we still have much more progress to make in improving the techniques for doing that. And let me just wrap up in the following way. I did my PhD in environmental and resource economics, and that's basically a PhD in valuing environmental goods. I mean, the entire PhD has to do with that to answer Crystal's question. And that's going to be part of what we're going to be doing next week when you read chapter 20. Okay, so wrapping up this idea, here's how we are trying to address the environmental problem of externalities as external costs. So we have been using this example of a firm, of a firm that is using a pesticide that drains downstream and affects waterways and therefore the lake. And it affects others because that creates damages downstream. That has involved a private benefit to the banana growers and an external cost, which is imposed into the fishers, but not to the cost accounting of the firm. And that is a classical example of a market failure. There is a misallocation of resources. And we have proved that that is socially inefficient because there is too much pesticide and too much production that is creating more damages than the actual benefits from that level of production. And when we talk about possible remedies, we have already talked about bargaining, common ownership, one buying the other one or creating a co-op of all the assets. And later, when we get into the details of policy, economic policy, we'll be talking about taxes, quotas, or bans. Just a quick preview on those. Imagine here that we can impose a quota, meaning we are just going to prohibit any banana production over 38,000 tons. So basically, the banana producers are allowed to produce only 38,000 tons. That's one more way of regulating this. That's one possibility. The other possibility, we will be seeing this later, is placing a tax, imposing a tax per ton of bananas that is going to internalize the external cost. And basically, that tax is going to be the equivalent between the green line and the purple line. So at this level of production, at this level of production, this would be the tax. So you charge the banana producers a tax that is equivalent to that gap there. And that's one more way of inducing a change in the banana growers so that they are incentivized to reduce production because now it's costlier for them because we have internalized through the tax the external cost that they are imposing on the others. So that would be that one more. And we will be dealing with that later to this type of solutions of quotas, taxes, and bans. Okay? Let me pause there with the following. The idea for SA2 is that you are going to be applying these tools to your particular problem. So what I want you to do is the following, and I am going to, I'll show you how we are going to do it with a Padlet. But the idea is that with your particular problem, think of the players that you already identified when you did your previous essay or any other players involved, but think of two players, one of which is causing a harm and the other one is suffering the external costs, how the actions affect one another based on your particular problem, and think of that environmental problem that is associated. And in the cases that you have been dealing with, it could be with the loss of biodiversity, the pollution in the air, the global warming from emissions from energy use, the damages to health because of certain food production or because of diets and consumption of certain types of food. There are many kinds of examples. So what I'm going to do, sort of like a preview for you to start and work towards your second essay is that I'm going to give you the following. I'm going to, and let's see if I can open this here for you. It's a Padlet in which you will be able to write as a draft note so that I can give you feedback. And the way we're going to be doing that is here. So let's make sure that this works. I am going to share here in the chat and give it a try to open this Padlet and just post something, basically your name, if you want. Just post a box there with your name, and you will be writing extra, and you need a password. And I think for the password, you need to use ECON308 Spring, like that. So in a way, this would be a sort of preview of what you're beginning to work out for your essay 2, so that I can give you feedback. So I see here that Joseph is already being able to write. Chris is able to write too. Okay, perfect. So here's an example for you to see. Let's see if this works. I'm going to add one, and this is Juan Camilo, and I'm going to here do the following. Banana grower uses pesticide and harms the fishers in the lake because of the pesticide, health losses, and dead fish. Okay, so that's the one we have been using, and I just posted that. Okay, so this way I can give you feedback much earlier for your essay 2. Okay, so the idea is that start writing something like what I just did for our example, but for the example that you're using in your research. And remember, you are open to start thinking of different ways of dealing with your research topic, depending on the particular, but find an externality, find two agents like the banana growers and the fisherman, and put them together in a relationship in which one is creating externalities to the other one. And then going back to our picture, what I want you to be able to do is to try to do this same type of diagram for your particular situation, so that you apply this concept to the particular problem. And what I expect you to do in the essay is to develop the argument of why in your case you have that particular variables, those particular variables. What is it in the horizontal axis? Usually in the vertical axis, we're going to have money, costs, and benefits. What is it that you're including in your private marginal cost? What is it that you're including in your marginal social cost? And what is the cost of the externality? Okay, so that's what I wanted to do with respect to that. And so use that Padlet in the coming days, and on class on Tuesday, I should be able to have feedback for you, and I will be typing things in that Padlet so that I can see how you are advancing, making progress towards your second essay that is coming up in a couple of weeks. Okay, so I don't know if you have questions with respect to that, and I'm pretty much out of time, but I want to make sure that this Padlet is a way of me giving you feedback in advance, but also for you to see what the others are doing. And to me, this tool in this particular type of tasks is really helpful, because that way you can see how others are thinking about their own problems and how you can improve yours. And then I will be writing there some notes so that you can get immediate feedback to improve the narrative that you're going to be writing for this second essay. But again, think that the idea is that you put your problem situation within the framework of this model that we have been using from chapter 12. Okay, so any other question on that regard? And if you don't have any more questions, so I'm going to stop there. And again, remember, and this could be a good way to practice for the quiz that we're going to have next week, and because this makes you think about the analogies of other cases. So it's a good way that you work through this in the coming days and during the weekend. So if you have questions, let me know, and I will be uploading the video and the notes, that the slides that I've been using, so that you have all these things together for your study for the quiz that is coming next week. Okay, good. Okay, so good to see you guys. See you on Tuesday, and hopefully I will see interesting things in that Padlet so that you can send me questions through there too. Okay, bye guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.